Thank you so much for joining us on the Coach Launch podcast today. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
It's going to be so much fun. Guys, welcome back to the Coach Launch podcast, the show where we help business owners, entrepreneurs, and coaches grow with the proven practical strategies. Today's guest is all about turning chaos into calm with a usable structure. Zhara York is a financial planner, licensed real estate, realtor, entrepreneur, and author who helps high-functioning professionals and entrepreneurs move from reactive decisions to confidence with well-structured strategies. After years of traveling and starting over without a safety net, she learned the hard way that freedom without systems leads to instability. And that insight now drives all of her work. Zhara is the author of The Traveler's Guide to Life and the upcoming The Traveler's Guide to Love, a series on identity, relationships, and intentional living. As a financial planner serving clients nationwide and a realtor in Tennessee, she helps people align their money, real estate, and life decisions into one cohesive plan. Success feels sustainable and not chaotic. All right, let's dive in. Are you ready to go, Zara?
I'm ready.
Let's do this. All right, so just so people get a feel of what you've been up to and what you've accomplished so far, give me some of your accomplishments and the things that you've achieved and done so far in your business.
Well, for starters, I think I basically was raised on my own, starting at 15, when I was 15 years old. So I left my home. I was born in Venezuela, and my family moved to the US late 90s, early 2000s. And my parents got divorced. So I moved with my dad. My dad ended up in Tennessee, where I am right now. And I went to New York City. So I was by myself in New York City at the age of 15. And I didn't have anything at all. No safety net whatsoever. And now I own my house in Tennessee. I do have my own business. I'm a professional. I'm an author. Yeah. So I think that was one of the achievements I could say, yeah, to start, one of the biggest ones.
Get me starting in the beginning as a kid, 15 years old, New York City. New York City is
Mm.
a big, bold city, right? So tell me, were you scared?
I was scared because I was 15 years old. I was very young. I didn't know anything. I mean, what can you know when you're 15 and then you're in that big city? But I was very lucky that I had my mom at the time. My mom was my mentor until she passed away in 2012, unfortunately, but she was there. I would call her very often. I'm grateful I had her through all those years.
You were living alone, right?
I was living alone. Well, I started my relationships pretty early. And hence, I started writing my second book. So, things that a 15-year-old shouldn't be doing. So, my first relationship was at that age, and I was living with my first boyfriend at the time. Of course, that ended. What can you know at 15? And moved to the city. I was in Freeport, Long Island, New York City. Yeah, in New York. And then I moved to Manhattan after that by myself. I was living in a room.
And that happens when you're younger, right? We got to make do with sometimes where we go. But
Yeah.
what's interesting, so you'd come from Venezuela at that time and got yourself established or set up in New York City. Today you're a two-time author and you're a successful businesswoman. Tell me, that didn't come naturally, or did it come naturally? What was the transitional mindset shift from being this 15-year-old scared in the big city to where you are now as a successful entrepreneur?
Stuff because it's like I learned as it went. And of course not, I mean, not every step of the way was beautiful. Um, but one thing that I always said, I always had a north. There were moments that I will go out, there were moments that I will do things that were not supposed to, but I always had a north, and that was my focus. That was my motivation. I don't care what is going through right now. I don't care what's happening. I need to achieve what I need to achieve. So I think that's what kept me on the right path. And that's important. You have to have goals. Goals are very important.
Yeah. How important do you think goals are?
they're everything. They're crucial. I think they're just paramount. If you don't have a goal, I mean, it's like you live life without a nerve. Where are you going? And then you don't know what you want. And when you don't know what you want, you're just randomly trying things without direction. And that leads you to incomplete paths, to incomplete, dreams. I think you can achieve whatever you want. We're capable of doing. I mean, you want to be a millionaire, go for it. It's all about persistent consistency and understanding that life is not just perfect every day, and then you're not going to get things overnight unless things are handed to you in a silver platter. And unfortunately, that's not the way it is for the majority of people.
Consistency and persistence. I love that. Those are very important words, powerful words. Without those, we run around in circles, right? Like, and the idea of having goals, when what I've found is if you don't have goals, what happens to people is they tend to overthink or procrastinate, or they don't achieve, like they're not wanting to achieve things. So then they say to themselves 5 years down the track, why isn't my life better?
Yeah, because you're not putting the effort. A lot of people think that things are going to come right away. It's like, for example, there are many real estate agents that quit. I deactivated my license for a year and they find it difficult. But when you are you're the owner, that real estate finances, you lead your business. You're not working for anybody. Nobody's giving you instructions. You had to come up with. And that's a tough responsibility. And not many people are prepared for that. You need to create your schedule. You need to assign yourself tasks. You need to, find your strategies, and all is on you. When you work for a company, the company gives them to you, and that's why you receive a salary based on your time. But when you are a business owner, you have the control of everything. Well, there you go. That's the control you have. That's your responsibility.
And so you came out of this environment where you were kind of finding your own way as a young entrepreneur or a young lady in the world in New York City, and I can imagine how tough that would have been. Talk to me about some of the struggles that you faced along your entrepreneurial journey to get to
Yeah,
where you are today.
being rejected, because when I was in school, when I went to college, I didn't know I was going to end up in, in real estate and finances. But I went to college and I studied criminology. And my dream job was to work for a government. Um, Always. I still like it. I mean, I have read so many books, about true crime and all that, and I enjoy them. I was rejected. I tried to join the military in the US. They rejected me.
What?
Um, I applied for, believe it or not, I applied to FBI. I made it to the second interview. The CIA, I made it, and then it never said there was rejection along the way. You get exhausted. I opened my first business in 2016 when I had my own clothing line, and I don't know any better. I was sued by Zara. My name is Zara, so we came to a settlement, and I had to close the company, and I had a lot of losses. So there was a lot of failures, and it becomes exhausting. Um, but here I am. And at the time, I'm not gonna lie, we're human beings, right? When we have those failures, I get overwhelmed, I get angry, I get stressed, and how dare people, don't see what I am and what I'm trying to do. Um, but those are part of the journey. Those are things that need to happen so you can become a better person. I didn't know anything about business back in 2016. I had no clue. I was going crazy. I was, talking to people in China with the factories at 3 a.m. when I was in New York. I had to go to China for business. I had to design. I had to control get a marketing manager that was helping me part time. All of these things. So how can you actually start a business with this, you know, outrageous and a messy strategy and a schedule? So that taught me a lot. At the time that I opened, started my real estate business, things were more clear. You went through that. So I'm not gonna jump and then to spend so much money on things that I'm not supposed to. Let's just do things strategically. Um, So it teaches you. I didn't know that at the time. That's why, there's a saying that says, well, things happen for a reason. You just don't know the reason yet.
Yeah. So it forged. So I'm interested in this. So you had a lot of rejection, and I think a lot of people are afraid of being rejected, and it does have an impact on you psychologically. And maybe for some people, it stops them from achieving or aspiring to get goals because maybe they've been rejected so many times. And it's not a good place to be when you feel that feeling inside of you, right? Like I've been rejected or I'm afraid of being rejected. What talk to us? I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would love to know, like, what is your philosophies or what have been the things that or tools that you've used to break through that? Because you've obviously accomplished stuff now and you're a successful entrepreneur and there is obviously a journey and I don't know what you went through, but maybe there's people in the audience that can gain some insight from that.
That's when you had to understand, sit with your thoughts and find yourself, right? For me, because everyone is different, it depends on personality, depends on the things you like, what you want. For me, when things like that happen, it was anger. And you'll have to transform negative feeling.
Anger. Explain anger. What do you mean by that?
You had to transform a negative feeling into a positive one because you're gonna feel. I mean, you're a human being. You're gonna feel angry sometimes. So for me, was you know changing that at the time that I was angry because I was rejected because it's frustration because you don't know what to do. It was for me motivation. Well, I'm being rejected. I'm angry. What can I do that is in my hands? Because I cannot control what people feel. I cannot control what people think of me, but I can control things that I can do for me. Um, and a lot of people focus so much on the outside, on the external, on what other people are doing and thinking, and you can control that. So why to put your energy on something that is useless? Is you're gonna hit you're gonna hit a wall. That's pretty much what's happening, and then you're gonna get tired.
So it's an interesting mindset because you bring this, you said it, commitment and persistence, which is two very important words to me. And what does commitment and persistence mean to you?
Commitment is to commit to something. Once you know what you want, commit to that. No matter what's happening in life, you have to be, loyal to that goal. And we most of the time we're not. Is because we think of ourselves like a lot of people say, oh my God, I can't, buying that $1 million house. No, how am I gonna afford that? Why not? Why you can't? I mean, what makes someone else better than you? It's all about what can you do that you're gonna buy tomorrow? Most likely, no. But that you can buy at a certain point, yes, it can happen. It's all about the daily things. It's like, when you're trying to lose weight, you cannot lose weight tomorrow. You need to follow a path. You need to wait a certain amount of time. And those baby steps take you to the final goal. If you want to open a business, I had a friend of mine that always wanted to, he was good because he was a manager of restaurants in New York City. I want to open a business. I want my own restaurant. I want to do this, and then he will never do it. But why do you have to start big? What about if you start selling, food to, certain people around you that and then eventually, during the summers, you can, rent a spot where you can go to this place, that you can sell things seasonally. And then later, well, you buy a food truck. And it's all about the things that you do little by little because you can do what you can afford and what you are able at the moment. If you think like, oh, I want that restaurant, I want to have a chain. I mean, literally, you're just gonna go crazy. You can't. It's just things don't happen overnight, and people want things overnight.
It's a problem in our society, right? But I love that you're talking about commitment, being committed to your goals and having that future pacing towards it. I love how you put it in that there's opportunity around us, so go look for opportunity to make that dream reality. And I think the key thing that you were saying there was, what do I need to do to make it happen?
Mhm.
Right? I have a goal. What do I need to put in place to get me there? Let's talk a little bit about persistence. So you're talking about commitment. What does persistence mean to you?
Even though I think resilience, correlates with resilience. Even though you're gonna have tough moments in life, it is part of it. Just think you have to have the mindset and be prepared that not everything is going to be pretty. And people want, when they imagine a final goal and they commit to something, they're so excited that they want everything perfect unconsciously. And just be realistic that there are gonna be moments people are not gonna like you, people are not gonna like your ideas, and that's okay. It's part of it. Fine, move on, then go to the next one. Just don't focus on that, because that's negative. So that's when I mean, with persistence, because you stay there continually.
Think you're a persistent person?
I think so, yeah. I learned that.
You think anybody can be persistent?
I think anybody can. It's just mindset. Is your thoughts are the reflection of your life and your actions, is what we
Love
think.
that.
Mhm.
Say that again. Just so the audience can hear that again. Say that again.
Your thoughts are the reflections of your life and your actions.
Your thoughts are the reflections of your life and your actions. I love that. Super powerful. Thanks. Look, from a perspective of goal setting, right? You work in the real estate space, and you have clients that come to you, and they want to build a real estate portfolio, they want to invest in real estate, or they maybe just want to buy their first home. Who knows,
Mhm.
right? What are some of the lessons you share with people? Because investing in real estate, investing in buying a new home can be complicated. There's a lot of things that go on, but how do you work on the mindset with your clients in real estate? Like, what does that look like?
It is sometimes very challenging situation, because when people don't know, um, either they're skeptical, right? What are those? Or they just think that because they know things their way, um, then if I am trying to show them a way of doing things better, I am the bad person. I'm trying to be sneaky. I'm trying to scam them. I'm trying. So is a lot of people go, and then that's when, for some reason, I see this pattern. A lot of people go and ask the uncle, the neighbor, and whoever they trust, but they cannot trust the expert. Um, and when you receive advice, you have to go to the right people. And your uncle and your mom and your dad, they're beautiful people and they love you so much, but they don't understand the business. So you need to understand that you need to rely you need to listen to reliable advice. And that comes from an expert or someone who is unbiased, or something that's unbiased, a book, for example, or a friend that you just met. Um, it's just no one, they don't gain anything on seeing you fail. And then, believe it or not, I'm not saying that that's the case, but when we go to family members, there is a lot of things involved. There is a lot of bias, and there is a lot of lack of expertise. So that's the part that I run into so much with with clients.
Interesting, right? It doesn't matter in business, in life, when you're investing in stocks, real estate, whatever it is. So many people want to have success, they want to have wealth and riches, but they're listening to the wrong voices. I see that a lot myself. And oftentimes, not even just listening to the wrong voices, sometimes I see as well people being arrogant that they think they can do it better themselves rather than working with experts who can shortcut the process and cut out years of struggles. And I've seen that a lot. So I totally understand and resonate with that. And it's a big thing, right? Because we trust our mums, we trust our dads. Dad's been giving me advice all these years, but when it comes to big financial decisions, are they millionaires? If they are, then maybe you would listen to them. Have they made $100 million or $10 million or even $1 million, right? Yeah, maybe you could listen to them. But if they haven't done the thing that you're aspiring to do, I 100% agree, Zara, that we need to speak to experts and get consultation from people that have done it before, that have made the mistakes and can help you shortcut those mistakes.
I said arrogance is the worst trait you can have for success. That's not gonna lead you anywhere.
It's true, so true. It's and it's another thing that I like to talk about. It's your inner circle, right? The people that the closest people around you is the results that you're going to emulate. If you're not hanging around with people that are smarter, faster, more resilient, that have made more money than you, then how are you ever going to be able to achieve those next levels of your goals, right? Like, so important. So tell me, what is you come out of so you were living in New York. Where did you say you live now? Sorry.
I live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. Love
Yeah.
it. So going from so you had this business. It was a retail business. Obviously, your name being Zara didn't help you too much with the branding side of things with a
Nope.
competitor out there. And so your business shut down. You ended up going into loss. And I don't think I've ever met an entrepreneur that has never gone through an experience of extreme loss. Successful entrepreneurs. It's a part of the game of pushing and trying and testing and failing forward. But I'm sure it wasn't pleasant for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot of things. Talk to me about what it was like going through that type of experience, if you could.
The process of failure when that happened, it was overwhelming. I mean, I had a whole bunch of merchandise in a storage that I don't know what to do with it. Paying for that storage, getting an attorney that could help me so I could at least get something back because I don't know, I need legal advice. It was, my website canceling everything. And then at the time, I remember I had a radio interview, which was it was something that was helping me. I had a fashion show. So those things were helping me to get known in the area. And then I was getting a lot of calls after that. And my thing was like, I can't do them. I was just, I can't attend. I can't have more interviews because it was the legal part that I was going through. I was anxious because I was entering into a new thing. I didn't know what to do. I had no clue where to go, how to start, calling my attorney and asking her for questions. Um, he ended up in a settlement, which helped me a little. But I tell you, this really is a beautiful story, and I'll be sure with that. I moved to Dubai, and I was in Dubai. I was probably a year living in Dubai, and randomly I got a call from the army, and it was really weird. The officer spoke to me and say, "Hey, I found all this clothes, with the brand new with the tag and everything, boxes. And I just wanted to finally I found you because we're sending this to Africa." And, and then and I was like, oh my God, my clothes, the ones that I donated. Because what else am I gonna do? So I ended up, donating all those clothes, and then he just wanted to thank me for that donation, and he even invited me to go. I couldn't go, but eventually he sent me this picture with all these ladies, give me girls in their 15s, 17s, wearing my dresses. So that was
Wow.
really fulfilling.
Wow. So something good came out of it in that instance. So I just want to take a step back. So you're going through all this crazy stuff. If you were to go back, what would you do differently? What would be the lesson you learned from that business venture?
Wouldn't have invested that much money in merchandise and thinking that, because sometimes we confuse positivism with, risky investment. Um, I was so excited, so happy, and I was like, I'm the type of person I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna make it. I don't care what you're saying. And then I started, I run too fast. It was too fast. I wanted things right away, and I ended
Yeah.
up spending money on things that I wasn't supposed to spend. Going big again, right? We think big and then we want to just start big, and that's not the way it works.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you might have tested things a bit more, looked at some of the numbers rather, the demand, maybe thinking about taking it a little bit slower. And
Yep.
that's such an interesting context for me. I work with clients was just like that, right? So many of us as entrepreneurs were like visionaries. We want to push forward. We want to get things happening now. We want to do the thing. And in my business, one of the things I coach people about is you got to take things slowly, run the numbers. If the numbers don't make sense, don't move forward until you've got the numbers working.
Yeah.
And it frustrates a lot of entrepreneurs to take things slowly and be patient. But the ones that have the most success are the ones that take a minute and just calibrate and slowly, incrementally, because you can still move fast doing it. You actually end up moving faster if you get all the foundations and everything in the right place, in the first place. So you have this amazing story, right? You've created this business, so much learning from it, because failure is oftentimes a massive learning, and you learn this big lesson. So fast forward, right? You're a successful entrepreneur now. You've a lot of learnings and you've experienced a lot. If you look back on that failure, right? And I've experienced huge failure in my past as well. And when you go through that, like at that time, you're like, the world has ended, right? It's like the
It's like,
worst thing. But you dust yourself off, right? You dust yourself off, life goes on, and then you start, the cogs start turning and you start moving forward. But if you right now looked back, do you feel that was a success? What do you feel about the learnings that you've got from all of that? Like you're moving forward in your business.
I think it needed to happen. I think it needed to happen because if that had never happened, I wouldn't be that cautious how I am right now, and as strategic. I analyze numbers, I mean, over and over again. Even when I invest, my mutual funds and even sometimes myself, I am a financial strategist, but sometimes I call a senior a financial advisor. You never stop learning. I don't think I know it all. I think there's so much that I had to learn, but that told me to be more strategic, to be more analytical. And even though, believe it or not, I'm not a I think I lack a lot of patience, but I think I have learned to manage it well throughout the years.
Manage the impatience.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
a hard thing to do, right?
I'm still working on it, but it has worked really well lately.
I hear you. I struggle with that. I don't think I know many successful entrepreneurs that don't struggle with impatience.
I think that's part of it. We want everything so fast.
That's right, right. And it's something that's a daily practice, especially if you want to have a successful business. It's a daily practice that you have to work on patience with yourself, patience with the people around you,
Mhm.
patience with your clients. It's patience all around and when you start learning that, it helps to develop your business so much quicker, I think, especially when it comes to real estate, which is what you're in, right? Because patience, everybody wants the the mansion and $1 million out of a property, like, and I love investing in real estate. It's one of my passions. I think everybody needs to learn and understand the name and game of real estate to build your wealth, to protect yourself, to manage tax, all
Yeah.
these kinds of benefits that come from owning and understanding the real estate game. Talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit about that type of stuff.
Yeah, so that's the thing that a lot of real estate agents, when I, being a realtor here myself in Tennessee, of course I'm gonna meet a lot of realtors as well. And there is a pattern in realtors, and it's now that I am trying to say that every realtor is like that, but it's very common. The goal of the realtor is to sell a house. I'm gonna sell a house. And they start, they end up selling the house, but they don't solve the problem. The majority of realtors don't understand interest rate. They think they know, and matter of fact, no realtor is going to know. This is not something. It's funny when my clients come to me. What do you think is good to buy a house right now? Is the interest? I don't know. I don't. I'm not a. I don't know the future. I don't control the market, so I'm not going to tell you a lie. And a lot of realtors come out like, no, the interest rate is good right now, or no, wait a few. They don't know. any realtor that comes and say, "Oh yeah, I know what's happening. Just wait a few more months." They don't know anything. They're just coming out with answers just to sell a property because that's the goal, to sell a property. My goal is just to solve the problem. And any time that a client comes to me and buy a property, what's your exit strategy? Because what, you're gonna stay 30 years paying for a house? That's a liability. While you live in
Yeah.
that house, it's a liability. You need an exit strategy, or at least options where we can touch base maybe in a year, 5 years, we'll figure it out. But are you going to stay paying for a house for 30, 36 years? I mean, 30, yeah, 30 years usually that's the average of a loan here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I think is important for me. That's what I learned, and I think that's what separates me from a lot of the realtors in my industry. They don't understand finances. Realtors don't understand about mortgage insurance. When you buy a house, my clients come and buy a house, and the majority, unless you get a VA loan, which is for people who serve them in the military,
Yeah.
banks are going to charge for a PMI, which is the mortgage insurance. Banks are
Yeah.
not going to lose ever money. So they think, you think the bank is going to give you $300,000, and they're not going to put an insurance on that if you pass away.
Yeah.
So, or if you go broke and you can't keep up with the mortgage. So what's going to happen? They're going to end. This is very interesting because the bank, sends a house to foreclosure. They get the money from foreclosure, and they get the payment from the insurance. And what do you get? So you need your insurance as well. So realtors don't know about that. And those are the things that after my closings, I always send it to, I help my clients with it. There are so many things involved in real estate when you own property.
You were talking to me before, and we were talking about patience and the requirement for patience and what it takes to invest in real estate, right? We've covered some, numbers are important and patience. But something interesting you mentioned before, we were talking just when we caught up before this podcast, you're talking about the reverse of how things are happening now and how it should be a reverse versus people going to a realtor versus going to the finance. You want to talk to me a little bit about that so I understand that a little bit?
Yeah, it's very common. The system has a flow. And it's like, that's when I created my website. And I patented, and it was a whole journey too. So when I started the business in real estate, I was like, why do I have to refer clients to a lender? Why do I have to do that? I mean, aren't you supposed to go to a lender, get money, and come to me? Why do I have to do the work of a lender? So I was like, what is the flow rate? I really don't get it. And it keeps happening constantly. It's funny because a lot of lenders call me. A lot of lenders here network with realtors. I need to find realtors because they're gonna find me clients. Shouldn't you give clients to realtors? Because you're the ones who are pre-approving, and then you send them to me. And I don't know. I think people right away when they think about buying a property, right away it's like, I need to call a real estate agent. With what money? You need to talk to a bank first, unless you have cash. If you have cash, then you can come to me directly. Other than that, there's not really much I'm gonna do. What I'm gonna do is refer you to a lender, and the lender getting a referral. So, so it's very interesting and ironic. And I created this website. This is an idea. I patented the idea. It's called BizNet. And so I was like, what about if there is a platform where everyone can go and use it as a dating app? Think of it like a dating app, but in real estate. Because we have so many roles in real estate. You have wholesalers, you have, investors, you have lenders, different types of lenders, because you have hard money lenders, you have traditional lenders, you have commercial real estate agents, you have residential real estate agents. So you have even people, photographers and all of that. There is so many roles involved in this industry. And I was like, well, what about if you go to that website and then they ask you all these questions that are aligned with your role, and then it matches you with, the person that is supposed to go to you. So if you are a buyer and if you're not prepared, it's not gonna match you with a realtor. It's gonna match you with different types of lenders, depending on what you're looking for. So that was the idea I had. It's there. and it's still, still in the works. But I think it's something that people don't understand, which is really frustrating. I think it's frustrating for real estate agents too, because it happens constantly.
I think you've got a couple of things I think which is so important, right? It's like, and I think this would be a great idea because it cuts out the middleman a lot. Because what's happening is that if you buy a property, you mentioned photographers, you mentioned all these other people down the line, and so everyone's taking a piece of the puzzle, and the vendor, not the vendor, the buyer is paying for all those extra costs that can rack up pretty quickly, and so your commissions are $20,000-$30,000 on a property, and if you lined it up the right way, you could save yourself a lot of money in that instance, which I
Yeah.
think is brilliant. Knowing all the pieces of the puzzle and the checklist of these are the people that need to, and
Mhm.
then just have it kind of automated. I love that. The other side of it, which you were talking about, where I'm really interested in, is the financial literacy of the people, right? So you said people go to an agent, right, and then they go to the financier, and investors, first home buyers, everybody that and I'm passionate about real estate, so I kind of know the
Nice.
industry, and I've seen this a lot where they don't have that understanding of the numbers. And you mentioned that before, that you go to a real estate agent and they say, what's the interest rate? How much am I going to, what's the borrowing capacity? All this kind of stuff. And people aren't educated on knowing what those numbers are. And then oftentimes being sold on these grandiose ideas. This is going to make you $1 million. This is, you're in the right market. You're at the right time for the purposes of the sale, which happens a lot. I mean, we've seen the
Yeah.
media has exposed a lot of the roughnecking that happens out there. But talk to me about that part of it, because I think financial literacy, knowing what you're doing, is way more important in the buying process than anything else that you do in this, I think. Is that right? Or
Yeah, I mean, I agree totally because I'll tell you for examples, I think I like to give examples because it's better to understand. I had a friend of my dad recently. I learned they bought a house. This is a very, middle class family, husband, wife, kids. They even live, they have grandma living with them. And they wanted to buy, they're immigrants, and then finally, wow, I'm gonna buy my house. They had a realtor that helped them buy the house. The house has a mortgage of they can barely afford. But only with the thinking, well, you know what? You're gonna buy a house. You need to buy a house because it's a great investment. You need to buy the house. And that's great. Just buy the house and later we'll figure it out. But the most important thing is that's an investment in the long run. How is an investment? I mean, I agree. Buying a property is an investment. How? How is an investment? Because the majority of people go and buy the house and I mean, we know that the majority of the population don't have $1 million in their bank account or even $300,000 to buy a house cash. So most of the clients are going to get a loan. Okay, it's an investment. It's true. Your house is going to be an investment. But if you don't know how you're going to turn that into an investment, it's going to become a liability. And now these people are just over, paying a mortgage. They have 3 jobs, both of them. They cannot even afford. They're complaining about it. And how is that an investment? Explain that to me, because to me, that's a liability. It's just facts. And I think realtors don't know about finances. Again, I'm going back to that. Realtors just don't know how to sell a house. And unfortunately, some of them don't do it maliciously. It's just part of the training, is what they know. And clients just, believe what they say. So that's what I say, I previously said that the point is the strategy on how it's going to be, what's your exit strategy once you acquire the property? And that's the part that I know. So, so before buying a property, we need to think about, do you want to use your equity to buy another house that's going to give you cash flow? Because that can be possible. Are you planning to turn that into a rental eventually? Are you planning to just wait for because right now we can go and study the market right now, and I mean it's a little bit more risky, but we can go with experts and see what it's going to look like in the next 10 years based on history, and see, well, in 10 years, if this house appreciated to this amount of money, is fine, I can sell it and then open a business. Or, there are many ways that you can get out of that. But people just go, well, no, just buy the house. It's an investment. How? Tell me the how. That's the most important part.
To knowing the numbers, right, and understanding the thing that you're buying. And I remember years ago, me and my partner bought our first property, and we are numbers-driven people, and we had an amount of borrowing capacity. We went and found out what our borrowing capacity was. We first went to a lender before we went and looked at the strategy to purchase. And where we were buying at the time, what was happening was it was an emotional market. And so people were just buying these properties. So we'd go to these auctions, and the auctions were just going nuts. So people would be like 400, 500,000 over value on these prices. And we were just like, we nearly got caught up in that energy stream of like, when you're at an auction, you just want to put up your hand and I want
Yeah.
to buy this property. And it was really, really tough. But we knew our numbers. We knew where we were going to sit at. We knew what the outcome needed to look like. We knew what the property had to acquire for us down the track. And this was something we bought for the purpose of renovating. And we went to heaps of auctions and we were just getting outbidded everywhere, but we stuck with our top line. And funny thing happened is one day we went to this auction and it was raining and not a lot of people showed up and the vendor was under pressure to sell. So the stars just aligned. And it took us about 6 months before we got to this place. But because we were so committed to sticking with our numbers and knowing what we wanted out of the outcome, we got this property at a really amazing price. And we renovated and it got revalued at the end. And we made like $250,000 in reval from the renovation. And the point of that is exactly what you were saying before. It's like being financially literate about the decision that you're making, not being emotional about it, and sticking to the decision-making process and knowing that it has to have a future value for you. It's not just, oh, I'm going to buy a property. It's just to have it. A lot of people do that. They buy they buy from emotion rather than
investment.
understanding that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens a lot and it's very common. I did had a listing appointment. The guy never followed up with me. I tried to follow up with him. And the reason why, I'm pretty sure, is because he was thinking that he could sell that property for more than the market says. And they just, people just think that is the way they want, and the market doesn't listen to emotions. And it's a fact. It's business. I have another client that's trying to buy a house right now, and she wants this beautiful neighborhood, and she has a budget. I'm like, you need to think about this. The first time she's buying a house, you need to think about that your first house is not going to be your dream house. You need to think from the investment perspective. Eventually, you will have the house, but the first house, you're going to have to give up something. You're going to have to be more flexible with location. You're going to have to understand more. Well, maybe I don't want this big house. I want a smaller property first, but it works for what I need right now. It's just emotions can lead to really bad decisions.
So good in business and in real estate. I've seen it so many times. It's crazy. We got to manage the emotion side of it. And this is the reason why people are listening to this podcast, right? Is to learn more about the skills of business and investing. I really appreciate all the stuff that you're bringing to the table today. Tony, what is one of your key messages that you're passionate about sharing with people? What if you had like one key message that you would share with the audience? What would that be?
I think not being afraid. A lot of people, limit themselves because they're afraid. They're afraid to take a step. They're afraid to take advice. They're afraid to learn. They're afraid because they're moving into something new. And I think that boils down to comfort zone. You need to get out of your comfort zone. Comfort zone is the worst prison you can ever have in life, in my opinion.
Wow. Comfort zone is the worst prison you can have in life. We can just end that podcast right there.
Right?
Love it. Mic drop. Boom.
It's just the way my mind works.
Yeah, it's too true. Too true. I can 100%. So how do you empower people to follow their path? Like, what is it that you do that's unique?
I use real stories, and I think and that's the reason why I wrote my book and why I'm writing, why the new one is coming up. I started writing when I decided to publish that. I was my life hasn't been very steady and perfect and traditional. Let's put not because no one is perfect, but as we say traditional. And when I use real stories or my experience and show it to people and right there, I think that can be inspired in a way or push people to do things that they want to do. So I use my experience as an example all the time, and others as well that I can see. I have a lot of clients that have beautiful stories, and with permission, I'll do it gladly.
Yes, so that's awesome. Love that. And do you have a framework that people work through when they go working with you? Like, is there a system that you help people with?
Well, yes. So if I have first-time home buyers, we always go to the financial bar. And like, let's just hold it right there. Let's have a Zoom or let's meet in person and let's talk about your finances first, and then we'll see what your goals are. Depending on that meeting, then we'll move forward to either, buy the house or we just kind of reset right there and see how we can help them to save that money and for how long to be in a really good financial position. So that's how I approach the business.
For investors?
With investors, I mean, they always try, because they want to buy property and then they want to flip them. And the investors are very knowledgeable when it comes to investments. The majority are. They have done it, unless they're first time investors, but always ask them, what exactly are you planning to do with that money when you get that flip? And then after that, and then we'll sit down and then we talk about, okay, so let's multiply that money and eventually use it for another investment if that's what you wish for. So that's usually the approach with them.
What are some of the mistakes that you see are being made in the industry?
I think it's a lot of lack of financial literacy in this world. I mean, the US is huge, but I think generally there's a lot of lack of financial literacy. We don't teach that in a school, unfortunately, and they should.
Right? They don't teach that in a school. And it's amazing that you're trying to help people with that understanding of financial literacy, because I think that's probably one of the most valuable things you can give, or a gift that you can give to anybody, is when they understand
Mm.
the numbers and how to plan for their future, how to put aside, save, excuse me, invest in the right direction, and know how to use their money, the money mindset, money in the right way, right? Like, isn't like that's the most important aspect.
Yeah. And even when you do those things and I seen it that it works. Real quick, I was teaching middle schoolers at a certain point, and I bumped into them. They were in high school. They saw me outside, and one of them told me, I'm like, Miss York, I actually started saving for my car now. So I'm gonna have a car when I graduate from high school. I started using Coinbase and investing on stocks and coins. So it was at least I planted the seed of that kid at some point, and it works somehow in that little small detail.
It'd be great a story when he comes back and says, "Hey, you helped me become a millionaire or a billionaire," right?
That's the greatest feeling ever that you can help someone and then that's your work. You did something, you were part of it.
Love it. Yeah, so good. Zhara, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I've really enjoyed this discussion, this conversation. You've got loads of wealth of knowledge. I love that you're helping people with financial literacy and giving them the right tools. And I think it's so important. So I appreciate your time hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Before we go, can
Mm.
you tell me how can people get hold of you if they want to find out more?
Yes, they can email me directly. My email is Zara, Zhara, York at ilnagency.com. And they can see everything on my website, which is znetconsulting.com. Everything is there, everything that we do.
Amazing. So good, guys. We'll put that information in the show notes. Zhara, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll
No,
talk again soon.
thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.